everyone. Welcome to our very first guest episode of Let's Hear Miss Virginia Volunteer. I am here with Regional Resource Development Director, Miss Tammy Shanks. So, Miss Tammy, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Haleigh.
Absolutely. So, tell me a little bit about how you got involved with the Salvation Army.
Well, I had worked in nonprofit before had got into working with education and youth enrichment, but uh, about that time, I started really wanting to focus on human needs. And so an opportunity opened up with the Salvation Army, and I applied for it. And I actually started out working in a local corps. So I worked exclusively as a director of development there, and worked there for about 4.5 years here in Lynchburg, and then left and went to the position I am now, which is a regional position for Southwest Virginia.
Okay, awesome. So, you talked a little bit how you got involved with the Salvation Army. Tell us a little bit about the Salvation Army's overall mission and how it impacts youth today and also all the programs that it offers.
Well, the Salvation Army has actually been around since 1865. And, our mission is to help all those in need in His name without discrimination. So we work to go into a community and we determine, what that community needs. So the Salvation Army looks different in the different communities where it actually serves because it's based off of the needs of that community. And our programs are vast. I mean, we do everything from helping with feeding to utility assistant to sheltering to um, programs that, help with drug addictions and so forth. As far as the youth component of it, we also have after school programs where we're very active in. We have after school feeding programs. And of course, the Salvation Army has a established youth character building program that we also have that we administer.
That's amazing. So I got involved with the Salvation Army after winning Miss Virginia Volunteer because we are a national partner with the Salvation Army. And after I won, I became the state ambassador. So that was my first ever introduction. You see the bell ringers at Christmas, you do the angel tree growing up, but I don't think a lot of people realize, what all the Salvation Army does and how it goes beyond just Christmas. And so my first appearance was actually to the Roanoke Corps,
Yes.
which was absolutely amazing. We went to one of your Turning Point
Yes.
locations, and so that was amazing just to go there and see the need. We worked specifically with the human trafficking and domestic violence shelter. And so tell us a little bit about how those shelters got started and what led to that need to be filled.
Well, it's really interesting, but one of the things in that particular area, because of its, I guess, proximity to travel routes. So you have, from DC coming down the interstates from 81 down through 581 across 460, 29, and even the routes that will take you directly into down to Atlanta and so forth. It makes, unfortunately, Roanoke a much more desirable location for human trafficking. So, and also, there was a recognition that there was not a shelter that was, um, completely safe, a safe, secure shelter for domestic violence um, survivors that was in the area. So I would say probably about 30 years ago in the Roanoke area, they started looking at that and they, determined that there was a real need based off of the community need. Going back to what I said before, a lot of the programs are determined by the need of the area. And so that was what brought about the domestic violence and human trafficking shelter there in Roanoke. And it services, like I said, of course, the greater Roanoke Valley, but, really anyone within proximity that needs help.
Absolutely. So when I went, I was deeply impacted because
Yeah.
that was my first ever appearance of the Salvation Army and that I barely knew anything about it. And so just seeing it and seeing how much your staff cares about every single person that comes through that program and wanting to help them get back on their feet is so inspiring. I got to visit with my teen Sheridan and with the national title holder Berkeley Bryant, and I know that also left a huge impact on Berkeley as well. So, with this national partnership, we've had to have so many amazing opportunities with the Salvation Army. So, tell me how you got involved with Miss Vickie Runk, who is the chair of the board for Miss Virginia Volunteer Pageant.
So, I had the honor of basically, Vicky knows one of our officers really well that works with the Salvation Army. And they both have put a lot of volunteer time into the relationship between the Salvation Army and the Miss Volunteer Pageant. And so she had reached out to him, and through different communications between the powers that be, I had an opportunity to where, since I was local and in this area and serve this area, to actually be able to be a part of this great, partnership. So it gave me an opportunity to be at the pageant, and of course, it's given me an opportunity to work with all of you and help, each of the, pageant winners and different ones to bring awareness to your cause, volunteering and the importance of it, because it's such an important need to what we have,
Mhm.
in the Salvation Army, because volunteers is such a important part of the programming we do. So I kind of got, involved with it that way. And I'm real excited about it. I was talking with my boss earlier today on the way over here. We were having our weekly meeting, and we were talking about, how much we appreciate this opportunity and how much we're looking forward to being able to build on it, in the next year to, set up, to even have very specific opportunities where, we can come together and, on the calendar for the whole year in
Mhm.
advance and so forth, because, it's just a great alignment.
It really is. And this national partnership, it's in its very first year, like a full calendar year of
Yeah.
putting everything together. And I think Berkeley Bryant has done an amazing job spearheading it on a national level. But I know personally, I've had the opportunity to travel to 5 different states and multiple different Salvation Armies in those states, and just seeing the different needs that the Salvation Army fills 100% off of donations is
Yes.
insane. So, can you tell us a little bit about the Red Kettle Challenge? Because I know I got to participate in with it in Washington, D.C. with Commissioner Hoddard himself, which was amazing. But that is
Mhm.
also how you get the majority of your funding for that this calendar year.
Yeah, the Red Kettle is it's the largest fundraiser or event, you might say, that we do in the course of the year. And it's usually, on average, it can be anywhere from about 20% of a core budget. So
Hmm.
it's a very important fundraiser for us. And of course, it got started, in the late 1800s in San Francisco, basically, where, an officer that was out there, he just, put a pot out, and people started, putting coins in it to help pay for a dinner that they did every year, a big community wide dinner. And it's kind of grown into this opportunity for people to give their loose change to be able to support uh, a much bigger cause. And so, um, yeah, the Red Kettle is a program that we start working on in July, and we go all the way through. Volunteers are a key part of it. We work with local churches, individuals, and along with, we encourage through the challenge and different to have people to sign on now to our online part of it, and to actually raise money online and through their individual kettles and so forth with it. So yeah, it's huge.
It is huge. I know we were on a live stream with Commissioner Hoddard in Berkeley. And in one of the Indiana bell ringing stations, they had someone donate this massive, like, gold nugget that they found in
Yeah.
Australia. So
Yeah.
that was really
Yeah.
cool to see live and get to see, like, the impact that that's going to make in this
Yeah, it's
community.
it's it's really wonderful. Sometimes you'll see them, and they'll have they'll drop in like a ring or
Hmm.
something like that, and it's just like it. But even, just any gift. I mean, anything like that is just huge for, us, when you stand out and you do those kettles and you ring, and there's just so much more about it too. Because, like, I know my son and I, we do it every year, and it's become a tradition with us. Ringing
Yeah.
the red kettle is a tradition. It's part of our family, Christmas and holiday experience. And for a lot of um, different families, it's that. So it's huge, and it's not only just a fundraiser, but it's one of those opportunities that gives people just that good feeling about
Mhm.
serving others, and it's a real simple way to do it, but your time gives back in such a huge way.
It really does, and it's also a time of connection. I feel like that's when you really get to be in the community, see
Oh,
the
yeah.
people, talk to them about the impact that the Red Kettle actually makes because again, like I feel like the Salvation Army really pops up in December and everyone's talking about it and then during those months that are so crucial that it kind of fades into the background. So, speaking of volunteers, what is the biggest need for volunteers? How can people get involved?
Well, I would say that, we volunteers is critical to our organizations because of the fact that if you don't have volunteers, then you have to do paid staff. If you're doing paid, then that's less money that's going to go specific to the program. Every single program needs volunteers and they need volunteer support. Of course, at Christmas time, that's probably the most visual
Mhm.
because you see the kettles and you see them out.
Yes.
But there's volunteers that are needed in our community feeding programs that we have.
Mhm.
There's volunteers that's needed in most all of our different corps have actual food pantries. So somebody to actually stock those pantries, there are volunteer needs with that. There's volunteer needs with working with, ones where we have programs where we have after school, there's opportunities with that disaster,
Mhm.
huge, huge opportunities there where you can sign up and actually, be able to be on call to go serve in disaster locations.
Mhm.
There, our volunteer structure and the way that we use volunteers, we have, a system with it. So we really want to work with individuals too to make sure that they have a good, opportunity to walk
Yeah.
away feeling good about what they've done because there's just so much out there, so many different opportunities to serve.
Yeah, I kind of want to touch on disasters real quick. I'm
Hmm.
getting the disaster certification and taking the class in
Yeah,
April, and I
yeah.
am so beyond excited
Are
to
you doing the
potentially.
PIO? Is that the one you're doing, or which one are you signed up to do?
I'm honestly not really sure of the name at the moment. It's slipping my mind, but I'm very excited. Especially, we do a lot of tornado
Mm.
relief in
Yeah.
Oklahoma, and so just getting to go in the Panhandle and do that where
Yeah.
I'm from in Texas and Oklahoma is going to be really awesome. But trying to see where else I will be needed throughout the United
Oh,
States, that's something I
yeah.
definitely want to continue doing. But we've seen the wildfires happening
Yeah.
all over
Mhm.
California. How is the Salvation Army, helping in those moments of crisis and need?
Well, the Salvation Army has a very structured system in place that with the disasters, they've actually been working disasters till the 1900s. So they've been on the scene for more than 100 years working and doing disaster relief. They partner with the local agencies, government agencies, and they also partner with your local first responder agencies.
Hmm.
So a lot of what happens is like immediately, like just giving you an example of the crisis, the disaster that's just happened with the collision of the planes. They have actually contacted almost immediately to say, "Hey, we're here. We're ready to do food relief. You call us in when you want us." They actually then had an opportunity to go to one of the local skating centers to set up and to help provide nourishment. So we do a lot of mobile feeding. And then, but we're there for a long time. So, with all the money that is donated within to the Salvation Army, it goes for a particular disaster. It stays with that disaster. So,
Got it.
all that money that you get for that disaster, it stays with that disaster. It's not used for another disaster. It stays in that community until it's all spent.
Hmm.
So, for that reason, we are not only serving in the beginning with just the mobile feeding because that's the most dramatic thing, just getting
Yeah.
on the ground and helping with that. We also have this spiritual component too, so we can actually be there and just listen to people, pray with people, help with that, which is something unique within the Salvation Army's disaster work. And then we stay around after that, and we help, with helping with the needs of what they need with their home. And, we set up, work through local offices or set up disaster offices there
Hmm.
to help, until the funds are dispensed. So we were actually a Ground Zero 9/11. We were I think, either the last or, one of the very last nonprofits that actually pulled out. We had a position at Ground Zero for, a very long time,
Mhm.
based off of the donations we received and the work that we were doing there. So, yeah, disaster work is very, very rewarding. And there's all
Yes.
kinds of components to it from, manning, going in manning, uh, when you get donations as far as clothes and things like that, or having warehouses to where you have, which let me just back up with that. I will say that with disasters, a lot of people like to give clothes, but
Mhm.
the best thing is always to give money because you have to find a location to house all that and you have to go through all that issue. But see, you have to have volunteers that are trained to be able to find locations to do those
Yeah.
sorts of things and have have the facilities and the warehouses and have that going. So it's so many different components with an actual program. And most of the people that go to volunteer, they're there for 2 weeks on
Yeah.
the ground, and you don't really know what you're
Mhm.
going to be dealing with, too. Sometimes you have water, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have, different, you have to sleep on a cot. Sometimes you sleep in a church, or whatever's set up for you, but you're really there just to serve during that time to help, while they're just meeting the immediate needs of, what is happening with their infrastructure.
Yeah, you mentioned something that I want to circle back to, and the Salvation Army actually started as a ministry.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people don't realize that, you see the bell ringers again and you see all the different programs, but you don't realize it's all Christ centered. So,
Yeah.
how has that impacted you throughout your entire journey with the Salvation Army, and how do you use that in everyday life?
Well, I mean, one of the things that I had mentioned that when I got into nonprofit work, I had been in insurance and finance before that. And basically, it was sort of a miraculous, well, it's always miraculous when you have a child, but um, I had a son and it was not something that I thought was going to happen for me. And so after that, I was looking for, really wanted to focus and, my energies on where God would put me. So, one of my favorite verses is in Proverbs and it says, acknowledge God in all thy ways and he will direct your path. And so that's especially what I focused on strongly after, my son was born. And through a series of experiences in the nonprofit community, like I said, God led me to the Salvation Army. And
Hmm.
for me, it's a wonderful thing because it's a fulfillment of, I guess, just my entirety because, my faith is such an important part of who I am. So mm, being able to express
Yeah.
your beliefs and being able to serve at the same time is huge.
Hmm.
Not everyone has that opportunity in their jobs with that connection. And I think people understand with the Salvation Army that we don't discriminate. So you don't have to believe the way we believe for us to help you. That's not a requirement. But we are there to be able to provide that spiritual
Hmm.
comfort and outlook and just to help. Because, our goal is we want each person that we help, we want to give them a hand up and we want them to have a full, experience. We want them to be better and moving forward to where, they don't have to experience the kind of issues that they're experiencing, now, either with homelessness or poverty or whatever we're serving. So it's just a great way to serve because one of the best ways to serve God is to serve others,
Yes.
and so that
Doing the
just
most
fits it.
good.
Yeah, doing the most good.
Yes.
Yeah,
And it's really cool because in those moments you get to plant the seed. Even if people don't want to take, what you're presenting to them in a Christ-like way yet, like you're planting the seed, you're putting that idea in their mind for them to potentially grow on it. And for a lot of people, they need that time to think. They might have been hurt or traumatized before. I know some people have even been traumatized by the church, and so that's something that they have to overcome, but it overcomes in their own time in their own way. So the Salvation Army's ministry is not one that forces Christianity upon people. Again, you don't discriminate. So it's about planting those seeds, planting that root to grow and sprout and to be healthy. And so that's really amazing what you guys do.
well, and I think too, people understanding that um, when the Salvation Army you had mentioned was started, it was started, as a calling because William Booth, he saw the need that was happening in London at that time.
Mhm.
You know, the overwhelming, the slums of London and
Yes.
the situations there. And he also recognized that the individuals that were there were struggling with fitting into the traditional church. So,
Mhm.
therefore, he devoted his life, his ministry on this movement, you know, to bring the gospel to people who are, you know, in some of the most challenging situations, but understanding that, you know, our way of serving is, like I said, you know, the best way we can serve God is to serve others. And so that might mean that, you know, we're going to bring you food, we're going to help clothe you, we're going to put you up, and then we're going to be here to talk to you about, you know, how to make yourself whole as a person, but understanding too that at the, you know, end of the day, you know, by serving you, you know, we're actually serving God, and it's an important
Mhm.
part of what we do.
Yeah, and you also arm people who come to the Salvation Army with life skills. And so life skills are super important, especially when it comes to rehabilitating yourself and reentering society, whether you have gone through a period of homelessness or you're trying to find your footing after a rocky season of life. And so offer all of these life skills programs and programs about helping people get jobs, resume reviews, working with different companies. Tell me a little bit about that because, as someone who's so passionate about life skills learning, especially in the younger generation, how are you guys doing that to not only help adults, but help kids?
Well, one of the things that we do, of course, when people come and seek assistance with us, we provide them with information. You know, we talk to them.
Mhm.
That's huge.
Yes, you
You
have
know,
to listen.
yeah, exactly. What, you know, tell me about your situation. Tell me about, you know, you want this need. So let's talk about how we can help. And there is a qualifying process for, you know, each of, you know, the help that we give as far as social services. So we're going to ask you, you know, to show us your need. But then we're going to see, okay, well, this is how we can help you with this. You know, maybe we can put you in with this, and maybe we can give you, you know, connect you here. If you're a veteran, let's connect you with veteran services. If you're, you know, if you need, you know, specific help beyond, you know, shelter, let's help you with this. Maybe, you know, we have somebody that we can connect you with that has
Mhm.
affordable housing.
Yeah.
And, you know, so there's a lot of that that goes on with the case management side of when we meet with people. And definitely when they're at the shelters and they're staying with us in our emergency shelter, like I'm thinking here in Lynchburg, you know, we're working with them during that time to try to find them some type of housing to go
Yeah.
to from there. So, and helping them. A lot of times when people are homeless, they have a job.
Mhm.
It's just they have all at once been, you know, overwhelmed.
Mhm.
You know, so we if they don't have a job, you know, we a lot of times partner with job aid, you know, organizations and different that are looking to help create job fairs and so forth. Uh, so there's just a lot of back end case management
Mhm.
trying to help with getting people on the right track. With children and the youth program we're doing there, we're trying to set skills in place and help them to work beyond their situations,
Yeah.
to hopefully you know, rise above generational poverty in a lot
Mhm.
of ways. So we're working to provide skill sets on lots of different things. It's almost similar to, you know, well, merits, you know,
Yeah.
based, you know, you'll go here and you can earn a, you know, patch for this, or you can earn something for this, but exposing them to opportunities with that, exposing them to music. That's a huge thing within the Salvation Army too.
A lot of music ministries.
Lots of music ministries, and then our camp ministries, and you know, ongoing camp, you know, work with the kids there. I mean, there's just a lot of, you know, focus that's done on those
Mhm.
sorts of things. And one thing I did want to say, which I thought was really, you know, talking about Danville, which I was just talking to the officer there the other day, and I thought this was so wonderful because they're working on their gym, a renovation with their gym. We're trying to get that in place, and they want to have pickleball. But one of the things they're going to do is provide pickleball to the people
That's
that are
awesome.
actually at the community feeding.
Yes.
So the individuals that are in community feeding are signing up to say, "Yeah, we'll go over and play pickleball." So that's huge because
Mhm.
that's an opportunity for, you know, that's just an opportunity for growth in itself.
Yeah.
So little things like that can have huge impacts.
Absolutely. My serve initiative for the Miss Volunteer organization is Teach Next Gen, bringing life
Mhm,
skills learning
mhm,
into schools. And so with the elementary students, I focus on empathy over apathy initiatives
mhm,
and building the foundation of confidence. And then once you get to middle school, it kind of graduates into continuing growing your confidence, but also finding your identity because those 3 years are so crucial. I know for me, like they were life changing. Went from being severely bullied for having a speech impediment and
mhm.
being 5'10" when I was 12 years old to kind of like
See, I
blossoming
had the
into a young woman.
opposite because I'm, barely 5 feet. So mine was the opposite of you.
No, it's so funny because my grandma is actually 4'11", so
Yeah.
she's pretty tiny
Yeah.
compared to what I ended up growing into. And then once we get into high school, it
Mhm.
focuses more on financial literacy
Yeah.
and life
Mhm.
skills learning because one of my mentors actually used to volunteer a lot with the Boys and Girls Club. And she told me the story when I first started going to schools of how a lot of kids can't see past, the situation that they're in or the things that their parents have gone through. And so she had a 16-year-old come up to her and was like, well, I'm just ready to, get pregnant, have a child, not finish high school. And that really impacted me because I know the importance of education and how it has impacted my life. And so that kind of became a cornerstone of, okay, I've heard that. And this is exactly what I want to do to prepare students to let them see beyond their situation. And so
Yeah. Mhm.
it's amazing to get to do my work, but also get to do it with the Salvation Army as well. And I've had the opportunity to visit so many youth programs across the nation
Mhm.
and speak to over 55,000 youth about the importance of finding yourself, not only finding yourself, but believing in yourself and setting those really important goals.
Yes, we have, and one of the things we have that's an active program is a Red Shield Clubs, and I know
Hmm.
that we have them in, Richmond and different places. We have them in, West Virginia, and I've had, an opportunity to help bring that around with a special donor that made a donation to help get that started there in Beckley, West Virginia. And they are huge programs in the fact that they focus a lot on that. They bring them in, help them with their education. They're
Yeah,
very specific. You have to have times for study, you have to have time for this. Uh,
exactly.
I was also thinking through a partnership we had in Danville that they actually worked with the kids that they work with and the kids that work with a couple of other youth serving programs there. And in the summer, they all took them all to Washington, D.C. So they had an opportunity to go to the nation's capital and so forth. So there's a lot of opportunity to try to, help, of course, the children where they are, but also give them insight of what their future can be
Exactly.
and giving them that opportunity. So yeah, I firmly believe that, which and I think that's proven data
Hmm.
that if you can impact children when they're young
Yes,
and
they're
can,
impressionable and they can
yeah,
grow into,
it can help have such an impact on them when
yeah.
they get older.
Absolutely. Well, I've loved talking to you today, Miss Tammy. Do you have
Yeah.
anything you want to add kind of about the Salvation Army as we close up and wrap up?
Well, I would just always say that if anybody wants to find out how they can get involved in their local Salvation Army, you can always go to our national website, and our national website has a place where you can put in your zip code. It'll tell you what your local core is, our local Salvation Army in that area, and you can leave a message for them, or you can reach out to them. And they will be able to share with you volunteer opportunities that you can have, opportunities to come in, tour the local course, see the work that's happening there. And also, we have opportunities there too if you want to make a donation to either support the programs at your local core, or if you wanted to, support a local disaster or a national disaster. That's also a good place to go to find out. And it can direct you to the local core in your areas.
Absolutely. Well, I've had so much fun talking to you today, and I know the impact the Salvation Army has made on me personally, and it has truly changed my life. And, I've only been working with you guys since August. And so I'm really excited to see where this partnership will
Yeah,
go.
and I'm excited to keep working. I think
Absolutely.
that,
We had the
and
Angel Train Express in December,
that's
and that was
right. We
amazing.
did, and we've had fun with that, and we've had, there's some things that are cooking up in the spring that I, definitely want to bring you guys in on, and I just think that it's just a great opportunity when two really good organizations can come together and have a joint impact in helping others.
I agree. And I think that's one thing that people always tend to forget about pageantry is a lot of it is service based, and having that servant heart is so important. And I know that's something that the Salvation Army doesn't just teach, but it's something that God has placed on all of his followers' hearts. And so it's amazing to kind of live out that purpose and see how it can change you and interact with you. But I've really enjoyed having you today. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you for having me.
Of course.